Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Red Bulls Experience podcast, the first of 2025. It has been some time since the previous episode. I recorded it before the Hudson River Derby in the playoffs, and so much has happened since then that we're going to get into. A big part of this is going to be previewing 2025 for the Red Bulls, but I want to do a bit of a retrospective of the final three games of the Red Bulls season, just because it was one of the most magical times to be a Red Bulls fan, and a period of time that I, along with the rest of the fan base, the front office, the players, everyone will cherish for years to come. So I'm excited to get into it. I'm riding solo today, unfortunately, but hopefully it'll still be a good episode as we look ahead to preseason. Firstly, for those of you watching the video version, I am repping the classic football shirts, Metro Stars inspired, Santa Claus. The sweater from classic football shirts, ugly Christmas sweater. Definitely a bit past the season, but thought it would still be appropriate to wear it. Let's get into it. I think November 23rd, and I guess the build up to it, to MLS Cup December 7th, was the most wild time, probably, that I've ever been a fan of the New York Red Bulls. I just remember, the build up to the Derby, super nervy for me. I don't know what everyone else was feeling. I was going in not confident at all. Just like prepared for another heartbreak with a little twinge of positivity in the back of my head that in every knockout game against NYCFC, the Red Bulls have won and have not conceded any goals. All of those games were played at Red Bull Arena. All of those games were not in the MLS Cup playoffs. The stakes for this derby were the highest they ever were. And that trend that I mentioned of the knockout record continued. The fifth consecutive knockout derby in all competitions where the Red Bulls have won and have not conceded a single goal. I made a graphic for that. When it's win or go home, they always go home. And it was blissful. It was a release of energy and passion for the fan base. It was just, obviously, we knew how it went in our place in September, and we got the revenge we needed, and that was the game that made our MLS Cup dreams possible. We were in the Eastern Conference Final. We had won 2 playoff rounds, and it was insane. Just the fact that just the Felipe Carbajo banger. I was in the supporter section for it. It looked like it was going over the goal, and I couldn't even believe it when it went in. We had the perfect angle, seeing the ball just soar into the back of the net. Everyone was going crazy. Citi Field was basically a library, and our supporters showed up and made it our home. And Dante's goal that went in, just euphoria. It was crazy. So that was the game that really made us believe. Fast forward a week later in Orlando, scrappy game. Andres Reyes goal right after halftime. John Tolkien, beautiful service. We get the job done. We hang on. We lift our first trophy in 6 years. Another nervy, crazy game in Orlando that I was not optimistic for. We come out on top. We have a nice trophy lift. It's not the main prize, but the Red Bulls were heading to MLS Cup for the first time in 16 years. And as someone who, I'm born in 2001, my first Metro Stars game was at Giant Stadium in 2003, I think, as a baby, but I didn't know what was going on until I think 2009 really was the first season where I was like kind of starting to like latch on to players and think about the storylines, and I was just aware of the stakes and the standings and aware that Red Bull Arena was coming the next year. And so the 2008 MLS Cup run, I don't really have any memory of. I feel like I have a vague memory of watching the Columbus Trophy lift, but like nothing about it felt emotional to me. Like I was not invested in it. So this was really the first time I was like, I'm going to be experiencing the Red Bulls playing in MLS Cup. It's a game that I have dreamt of seeing the Red Bulls play in since I was a kid. Simple as that. And it almost felt surreal. It felt completely surreal. We have been first round exit FC, as everyone in the league has known, for the past 5 seasons, 2019 to 2023. And this year, we didn't just advance to the conference semifinals. We didn't just advance to the conference finals. We advanced farther than we ever had in the past 16 years. And that was incredible. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity, after a lot of logistical planning and figuring out my schedule, to be out in LA, to be credentialed, which I was super grateful for, and experience MLS Cup. I didn't really get to experience the build up of the few days before, especially with all the media appearances and everything. But I landed at like 10 a.m. that morning, went right to Dignity Health Sports Park, and I was there. Um, and I know the LA community right now is obviously going through so much with all the crazy, devastating wildfires that have been happening, and MLS has been really good about, just uplifting the resources that the Galaxy and LAFC have been sharing, and it seems like the community has been stepping in, and I encourage any of you to donate to any organizations out there, any food banks, clothing drives, anything. Any donation helps. I know they're suffering a lot out there, and it's been deeply devastating. But it's crazy to think that basically almost exactly a month ago, a bit over, um, we were just all there in LA. 2,200 traveling supporters, all paid for by the front office, tickets, and then for the supporters affiliated with the supporters groups, getting a $300 travel stipend. They sent the entire front office out as well. I mean, they pulled out all the stops. I know this fan base does give the front office a lot of flack, and you can call me a shill if you want, but they really showed the amount of investment they have in this club and the fan base, and it was an insane gesture to see that investment happen. And we had it felt like 6-7 sections of red in that stadium, and it was a really proper away end showing, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to be a part of it. And whatever, not to get too emotional, but I was born into this club. My grandfather was a day one MetroStar season ticket holder, and I brought a jersey that the club gifted my family after he passed away 5 years ago now. And to have a piece of his legacy there with me at the biggest game for the Red Bulls in 16 years was deeply special, and just so grateful I had the opportunity to be there with all the supporters who did travel. And the result was not what we wanted. It was a depressing day. It wasn't necessarily depressing in the sense, like, some people found it really depressing to see, the Galaxy won their 6th MLS Cup, and like they already have 5, and like, I don't see it that way, because I've always respected the Galaxy. Us league originals have to really look out for each other, and like, there's no hatred between the Galaxy and the Red Bulls, honestly. It was the first time that the two original clubs from the two big markets faced each other in the final, which is crazy, but it is what it is. And I was not salty about the Galaxy winning. It was more just being sad that the Red Bulls lost. So I think ultimately it just really invigorated my love, and definitely our collective love as supporters, for this team again. This playoff run was insane. It is something that I really think should breathe life into the fan base again. And I know we are still without an MLS Cup, just like every season before this one. But after 5 straight years of losing in round one, a lot of those years were single elimination games. We made the playoffs, let's go. And then it's like 90 minutes, you're done. And I would like to think a playoff run like this is going to hopefully change things next year in terms of attendance and the love and support that the fans show. That remains to be seen. There's a lot of work, obviously, that goes on the marketing teams and the ticket sales teams and everything to fill the stadium. But what a magical run, man. I mean, just everything from the why can't we with Emil Forsberg as a rallying cry, everything from guys getting stuck in insane performances, Carlos Coronel having the best games of his life. And, you know, it was all undone in Metro fashion. I'm not going to get into all the crazy Andres Reyes stuff. If I think about it too much, it makes me really bitter and hurt and feel weird about the whole thing. It is what it is. It's just something completely out of our control. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But ultimately, so much pride to be where we are, to have a really whack regular season that flipped on its head in the playoffs. We make the run to MLS Cup, and it was magical. It was magical. And I'm grateful that we all got to experience it, and I would hope that it is not another 16 years until the next time we can experience it. So, with that being said, the Red Bulls are currently in the middle of their shortest offseason in club history. 77 days between MLS Cup 2024 and opening day 2025. 77 days between December 7th, 2024 and February 22nd, 2025. With basically a month of preseason games mixed in there. I'm recording this on January 13th at night on Monday. So the Red Bulls have still not announced their preseason plans in full. They've announced their Coachella Valley Invitational plans, which consist of 3 preseason games against San Jose, San Diego, expansion side, and I'm afraid of the third one. Real Salt Lake. There you go. They have not announced their full preseason plans, but based on the other clubs announcing their preseason plans, we've seen that we have a fixture against DC United and a fixture against St. Louis City SC on the 25th and the 29th, respectively, in Bradenton, Florida, at the IMG Academy, which is where the Red Bulls have been the past 5-6 years, something like that. 4 or 5 years, maybe. So we know we have those games. Maybe there's another one. Last year we played against a college side, so we might do that again this year. But preseason is starting to take shape, and it is starting on Sunday. Players report to preseason on Sunday. The Red Bulls have a bit of like a later start time than most of the other clubs because we had a later season. But it's kind of weird thinking that players report to preseason. I feel like we're still processing a lot of MLS Cup and the end of last season, but preseason is here, and a lot has actually changed, and we're going to get into that. So, starting off, the roster decisions that came out after MLS Cup. Firstly, Ryan Mara getting re-signed. I mean, fantastic. I thought they were going to pick up his option, but they just put him on a whole new contract for 2 more years plus an option. Hell yeah. He is our most reliable backup keeper. He had his best season as a non-starter. I say that because 2012 and 2020, he was like kind of the main starter for a portion of the season. You know, he was still firmly behind Carlos Coronel, but when he had to start, especially when Carlos was out for Copa America, he actually equaled Carlos on 3 clean sheets, I'm pretty sure, in like 6 games played. Obviously, Carlos went on to have more clean sheets, but at the time, Ryan Mara had some pretty great performances, clean sheets, and winning performances when Carlos was absent, and so definitely deserves a new contract. He is still my favorite player on the roster for pure nostalgia factor, but super happy for him. The roster decisions of Corey Burke and Aiden O'Connor leaving, I mean, you can't argue with those, man. I mean, those are just, like, Aiden is like a what if. Maybe he gets more playing time if he stays around another year, but um, yeah, just unfortunate that he didn't really get many minutes. Corey, I mean, great guy, funny guy, seemed like a hard worker, but the contributions were not there, and it's good to have him off the roster. We started with a bunch of little homegrown additions, not little, but homegrown additions, meaning players who have been in the system. We know these guys: Omar Valencia, Adri Mehmedi, Tanner Osborough's contract is now in effect, so big homegrown complement added to the roster to start the offseason. And then the main one is Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who, when I saw that rumor pop up, this was like actually right before the Eastern Conference Final against Orlando. I was like, wow, that's such a random name that we're linked to. And he's an older attacking piece. He's 35, I believe. He has had some great moments, played for some great teams, Bayern, PSG, Mainz, obviously the connection with Sandro Schwartz. So he is a pretty big name, hopefully a driver of some relevance, and people might want to see him as a star. He is a star from Europe, more of an understated one, but definitely a European star for sure, and a signing that is so unlike anything the Red Bulls have done in the past 10 years. I think we would have liked a striker more in their prime. But look, I'm kind of seeing this in a way as like a like for like Corey Burke substitute. Like, I don't think this guy starts every game. If he does and he can, great. If he doesn't and he's a super sub and if he gets 10 goals his first season and he's not the leading goal scorer of the team, I will be happy. I'll think that's a good signing. I don't know if he really warrants a DP spot, but I think it is good signing to just add some veteran experience, take a gamble, see how it goes. I think he has a lot of aura too. Not that really is a factor, but he just seems like a cool guy. And I think this is maybe a bigger topic, but I think we need those guys with that personality, that like juice, that a big moment of the playoffs that I made a whole post about was before Emil Forsberg's penalty kick goal that at the time put the Red Bulls in the lead over Columbus in Game 2 at home. Whatever, the crew were like getting in with the ref and trying to like stand on the spot and delay the penalty kick and get in Forsberg's head. And he just takes the ball and he's balancing it on his head like a seal. Like that is aura. That is aura. We need guys like that who are just willing to, in the most high pressure moments, be like, you know what? I'm just going to have fun. You don't faze me right now. I'm just going to balance the ball in my head because I don't care. You guys are a bunch of noise for me. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to bury this penalty. So you need guys with that European experience that just kind of ooze the confidence like that. And that will rub off on the younger guys. And so I think this is an interesting mix that we're seeing. We had it with Forsberg. I think it has mostly paid off. Choupo-Moting now as a veteran up top. Let's hope it rubs off. And those were really the main signings. We added Victor Bogash, finally, after the second time of asking, after the failed foray in the summer. Victor Bogash is the latest Polish striker to play with the Red Bulls. Some may remember another Polish striker that joined a few years back. He was not looked fondly upon in retrospect, but look, I'm hyped for Victor. I'm mainly hyped because his last name in Polish translates to my last name in English, and that's kind of cool. I might have to get a jersey with his name on it, depending on how he performs. But it's cool. I'm excited for the kid. I'm excited to see him ball out. Apparently Juventus was interested in him, and the Red Bulls made it work. The highest transfer fee ever for the Polish second division, and Victor is here. I made a post that we have Wiki and Victor. The pronunciations are not both Wick, but their names both start with Wick. Call us Wikipedia. I'll be here all week. Anyway, Notable departures. Andres Reyes. You know, there's all this speculation about did he know about the transfer and is that why he sat out MLS Cup? No, I highly doubt that. Um, and is it maybe harsh to like get rid of him point blank 3 days later? He's off to San Diego. Maybe, but in my opinion, you cannot miss out on the most important game in club history and expect to just be a starter the next season. It sucks because Reyes was so good in the Derby, in Orlando, and the whole playoffs. Even in leg one of Columbus, I remember I'm just like, wow. Like, I've had my opinions about this guy, but man, he is living it up in these playoffs. And so to see him leave, um, it makes sense based on his disappearance before MLS Cup. I think our backline does take a hit from him leaving, but in a way, it's like we won't miss him. We won't miss him. It's weird. It's such a weird situation because, whatever. He had his crazy red cards and whatever. When he was locked in, he was insane, and he was our best center back when he was locked in. Um, and he had his best moment as a Red Bull, scoring the goal to send us to MLS Cup for the first time in 16 years, and then his worst moment as a Red Bull, missing MLS Cup a week apart. And what can I say? If you miss that game, regardless of the circumstances, I don't know everything that was happening in his head or what was going on physically with him, but you know, it threw the team off, and as a result, you deserve to be off the team if you kind of let the team down in that way. You know, even if it wasn't intentional, even if it wasn't um, your fault in that way. Um, our backline does take a hit. We brought in Alexander Hack, who is another Mines link with Sandro. Mines runs deep here instead of Red runs deep. And I think he'll be a good veteran presence alongside Noah Ayala. Sean Nealis as well, obviously, as veteran center back for the Red Bulls at this point. But ultimately, our backline does take a hit, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how we do indeed respond from losing Andres Reyes. And we lost Elias Manuel. Something that for me was, I don't know if I would say it wasn't surprising, but it was just a guy that I liked. I liked him. I think he always just had bangers. Every goal he scored, I mean, the balls were probably moving like 100 miles. I don't even know. I don't know speed like that, but like rockets. The chip against DC this season. I mean, he just takes that off the bounce, boom, one touch, goal. All his goals just hitting the back of the net with such fierce speed. His hat trick against Charlotte in the playoffs. Every time you play Charlotte, you get a goal. Like, he was a dog. He was a streets will not forget player. Fun guy to watch. You could tell he really cared about the team and the club and his development, but ultimately the numbers weren't fully there, man. Like it's weird. Like you kind of like these guys, but they move on, and you're like, yeah, we could probably do better. We could probably do better. We traded away all our super draft picks as well for that, and he's now on Real Salt Lake. So 2 departures to 2 Western Conference teams, and obviously the rumors circulating about John Tolkien's departure, Dante Van Zer's departure, and the still yet to be announced as of the time I'm recording this, Marcelo Morales, who I believe will be a Red Bulls player, and Andy Rojas, who is still kind of circulating. Maybe announcements later in the week. It's been kind of quiet, actually, the past few days, last week and the beginning of this week. And so there's that, and then the Red Bull scouting Dominic Fitz in Austria as another central midfield addition. So the additions might still be coming, but preseason is starting, and the main guys are going to be reporting. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of works out. Another big piece of news is the renaming of Red Bull Arena. And this is something that has been rumored for a while. This is not new news, really. This has been thrown around a while. And it has turned into a 13-year partnership with Sports Illustrated Tickets. This is not the magazine. Sports Illustrated Tickets. I don't think it's really the same thing. I think it's just the same name, but I don't think anything with the magazine has to do with the tickets. It's a whole separate like ticketing system, and next year in 2026 there'll be like NFT type ticket experiences. To me right now it sounds like something that seems gimmicky on the surface just based on the press release, but we'll see. If it's executed great, awesome. Adds to the experience. So we'll see how that goes. Deep down, it's really weird, and I don't like it. And they took the sign down last week for Red Bull Arena, and it was a heartbreaking moment. A piece of my childhood definitely died. But ultimately, this is an influx of money. It's a sponsor on the building for the Red Bull Out crowd. This should be great news to you. The Red Bull name is off the building. I don't think a lot of Red Bull Out people are seeing it that way, but it's fun to think like, hey, we kind of gave you a little bit of what you wanted. You wanted Red Bull Out. Now you don't have to call the stadium Red Bull Arena. Sports Illustrated Stadium. I liked the Red Bull Arena name. It was classy. I liked Arena too. Arena. I don't think Arena is used around MLS. It's just stadium and park and field and all that. So Arena was cool. Like, we're going to the arena. I think that really was cool. And people are still going to call it Red Bull Arena. I still might. We'll see. Nonetheless, I'm excited to see if, they freshen things up. Obviously, we've got like the box seats. There's going to be the new press box location. Like, there are going to be stadium changes. And it'll be cool to see how they all kind of come into fruition for opening day on March 1st. And it's an adjustment, but it's money. It's money, and money talks. And I am hopeful that it will, bring some good things. Hopefully. In other news, Jurgen Klopp's first day was on January 1st. He is fully here. He was reported to have visited Paris FC, one of the new Red Bull acquisitions. And it was also reported that he might be in Coachella, I think, for the Red Bulls preseason. So if this is true, and if he's going to be this involved in flying around, kind of like what Mario Gomez was doing, apparently Mario Gomez was at every Red Bulls playoff game during the run, and I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the involvement is there. We signed Choupo-Moting. It's none of these signings are going to be the Thierry Henry type signings, but these are guys that we never had since 2014. So yeah, I'm hopeful. I think Red Bulls fans should be hopeful. We have the training facility being built. We're seeing the new pictures of that every month now, and there's a lot to look forward to in 2025. There's a lot to look forward to. You can write off 2024 as it's just another trophyless year. If you really want to get specific, we did win a trophy. Technically, we lifted a trophy, and we became Eastern Conference champions for the first time ever. We play in one conference, yet we've won both the West and the East, which is kind of cool in a way for the MLS sickos. Shout out. Yeah, you could see it as another trophyless year. Obviously, the regular season, not glittering, but to have the playoff run we did, and to make it to the final, that is only motivation. That is only more attention. That is only more of a reason to keep trying and pushing for more. As Emil Forsberg said at MLS Media Day, it changed the mentality for a lot of people, not just within the club, but outside the club. And I think this is also the first true offseason with Sandro fully at the helm, with Julian de Guzman as sporting director, fully integrating the academy, the second team, and the first team. Sandro getting rid of some players that were not really his signings. Jochen Schneider signings for sure. Like Corey Burke, like, some of those guys. But, we're getting more of a clear vision a year in about the players that he wants, that not just the ones that he inherited from Struber and Lassane and all that. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. A lot to be excited about, a lot to be nervous about. And that brings me to this section of the podcast, which is the little mailbag section. I asked you guys on my Instagram to share something you're excited about and something you're nervous about for 2025, because I think there's a good deal of both, whether it's with the roster, whether it's with whatever. So I got my note here. We're going to go into it, and we're going to just see what you guys are excited and nervous about, and we'll talk about it. So we're starting with VTX Vic, who's excited about the roster changes, and is excited about big signings this year compared to the last 5. I wouldn't say compared to the last 5. I think last year, Forsberg, big signing. We definitely had a bit of an understated transfer window, just him and Noah Isla, but I think you should be excited about the roster changes. I think you should be. There is reason to hope in Mr. Chupo. There's reason to hope in Victor Bogash. There's reason to hope in Alexander Hack. I mean, these are guys who are, Victor's obviously young, but seems like he has a really high ceiling. It's another young player gamble. But you bring in Chupo, you bring in Alexander Hack. These are good veteran guys, man. These are good veteran guys. We haven't really had a veteran center back in a bit. So I think it'll be useful to have that leadership and guidance and just shore those positions up. And if we get Andy Rojas, if we get Marcelo Morales, good reinforcements for sure. And so, I think we're in an okay spot. It's just a few things still feel like a gamble to me. Like, is preseason, preseason is going to be really pivotal for a lot of guys to really see where they slot in, see their skill level, and we still don't know about the destination for some of our guys that may or may not be leaving. We'll get into that. So, yeah. Next one is from RBNY Central, another Red Bulls fan page. He says he's excited to see how the team uses the MLS Cup loss as motivation. And I agree. I think this should really only be motivating. I think a lot of people around the league are just like, this is a washed, finished club. Like, we're the same as usual because we didn't win MLS Cup. But if you go from first round exit FC for 5 years to an MLS Cup appearance as the 7th seed, you are on the map again. You have expectations now, which is good and bad. We saw how this team thrived on 0 expectations, and now it's like, okay, this is an MLS Cup finalist. These are the Eastern Conference champions. We have to live up to that. We have to show, and I'm going to actually, this is another one from Miguel. He hopes that we show that our MLS Cup appearance was not a fluke. And that's what we have to do. We have to use this as motivation of like, this was not just a random one-off where like Emil Forsberg said, why can't we? And everyone was like, you know what? Why can't we? And they went and made it to MLS Cup. No, this is a larger indictment of this club and this team. And you saw it in year 1, man. Emil Forsberg leadership. It changed things. He wasn't always an insane presence on the pitch. He missed the entire summer, basically. And it kind of tanked this team. But just him being in the locker room and his confidence, as I was talking about before, it did things in just year 1. Sandro did things in just year 1, evolving the press, evolving the style of play. We can build from the back and have beautiful Noah Isla penetrating balls that, get up to Dante Van Zeer. One pass from the wing, goal. We can have build-up goals, and then we can also revert to the crazy, murderous turnover ball in the midfield or, the final third, whatever. And we can do both and live in both of those and adapt. We can play with wing backs. We can do a 4-4-2. We can, actually the wing back setup really did work, which makes me think, why didn't Sandro do that earlier in the season? But we saw in just year one the ability to be more flexible, to have more leadership, and we're only going to kind of build on that this year. And I'm excited for that, honestly. So I think there's a lot that the team needs to be motivated about. This is not, we're back to the drawing board, we're back to zero because we got eliminated from the first round for 5 years in a row. We have seen that 1 year after making a signing like Forsberg, 1 year after bringing in a coach like Sandro, we were in the MLS Cup. The only better thing the Red Bulls can do than last year is win the whole thing. And obviously it's hard to do that with 30 teams vying for that now. But it's proof that with what we had last year, which was a really mediocre regular season, that you can still go crazy in the playoffs and make it to the final. And so there's a lot to be motivated about. Matt Doherty says he's nervous about what the defense will look like. And I hear you, man. I hear you. We lose Reyes. And if we play with three at the back, it's Alexander Hack, Sean Nealis, Noah Isla. And then the wing backs are going to be, we'll see what John Tolkien's fate is. Could be Marcelo Morales. And it's Cam Harper as the right wing back. Kyle Duncan is still on this roster. He's a factor, but there's not a lot of depth there. We have Omar Valencia at left back. Center back is kind of slim. I think we need a little bit more in the defense. I think if one of those guys goes down with an injury, it'll be tough. And I totally hear you with the nerves about the defense. So I kind of feel that too. I think one more defensive piece would be good. Maybe even two, because reports are that John Tolkien is leaving. And it's been that way for what feels like 3 years. But now is really the time for him to move on. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So anyway, I'm kind of with you, Matt. I'm kind of with you. A little nervous about the defense. A little nervous about the depth of the defense. We'll have to see. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's kind of like how it was this year with midfield, where when Emil went down, there was no proper replacement, and we suffered. So, Andre Estevez, excited for year two under Sandro, nervous about results. Yeah, I was kind of saying the same thing about Sandro. I'm excited for year two. I think he really grew into the job super well. He kind of was losing a little bit of confidence in the fan base, I think, with the regular season finish, but the playoffs fully cemented him as the right man for the job, man. He took it and ran with it. He made the final in his first year as manager. I'm excited to see how it keeps going. He's a great guy, funny guy, great personality, and a real tactician, which is good. And I think he has more up his sleeve, which is cool. And then nervous about results. I hear you. I think the results are tough. We had 14 draws this past season or something, or some crazy number of draws. And I think there's a lot to prove about how we can have the top end goal scorer to give us these results, to have the match winners. I don't love winning every game 1-0. A lot of managers can do that and be comfortable kind of sitting back and absorbing pressure, and we've been successful at that. Knock on wood, but in the playoffs there weren't metro heartbreak last second, there were a good amount of those, but not really ones that made us lose or get eliminated or anything like that. It was mainly weird dumb mistakes that were just equalizers. We were winning and then we tied, it wasn't it wasn't always so catastrophic, but it was just that little edge of we could have had 3 points, we walked away with 1. Happened more often than not. And so I'm nervous about results too. I think if Chupo really hits, if Lewis Morgan stays like fit and good, um, it'll be okay. We'll see. And then this goes into the next one. Captain 80K, who's nervous to see if we'll have a striker with a 50% average or better goals per game. And is that Chupo? I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's him. If he plays 34 games, will he have 17 goals? I don't know. Lewis Morgan is not a natural striker. Victor Bogash is a natural striker, but we've not really been playing in a formation that is conducive to a main target person up top. Dante Van Zer, not a prolific goal scorer. He's rumored to be on the move back to Belgium. And so it really puts the onus on Bogash and Lewis Morgan. And like maybe Julian Hall gets a lot of homegrown minutes and scores 5, 6, 7 goals. Maybe Tanner Rosborough has a few super sub goals like Julian Hall did last year. Like there's not a lot of firepower besides Chupo and Lewis Morgan. So it's interesting. It's interesting. We've signed like 3 forwards basically, but there's still room for hesitation, and nerves. So yeah, this next one is a big one too. From C Maurice 07, who's nervous about Tolkien and Van Zier leaving, and I get it, and losing John Tolkien would hurt. He didn't have his most prolific season in 2024, but still had moments. Still was solid. He deserves to move on, man. I mean, look, I'd love if all our players who we loved would want to stay with us their entire careers, but the reality is these guys deserve to go to Europe and develop. And Tolkien has played with the Red Bulls. He was signed 5 years ago. He's played 5 seasons. He's been signed for 6 seasons, but has played extensively in 5 of them. That's pretty good, man, for a homegrown. We got Tyler Adams for like 2 years, really. For John Tolkien to be here for 5 years is a treat, honestly. And he's been, I don't know if I'd call him a club legend, but just a dog who consistently delivered, put the team on his back so much, and he deserves to move on. And if Marcelo Morales comes in, like for like replacement, seems like dude's a baller. All of the Universidad de Chile fans are in our comments saying like don't take him. So if that's anything to go by, Morales could be the next JMI. And Van Zer leaving, I mean, look, I kind of would like to give Dante another year, maybe another half season. Maybe he leaves in the summer. I think I would rather have that than him leaving this window. But if he leaves, it's really just, wow, we need to think about where the assists are coming from. He led our team in assists last year. He had his 4-assist performance against Inter Miami. I mean, crazy. Specializing in those darting runs down the wing, like cut back pass to the top of the box, middle of the box. And he got assists that way, and that set up a lot of our goals. He had 2 goals in the playoffs, 2 really crucial goals. And I think he really started to kind of show his personality more and his flair a bit more. But ultimately, you are a DP forward and you're not scoring goals. And if he leaves this offseason, Patrick Klamala will have scored more goals than Dante has. And look, I get his assists. It's great. I'm happy he's contributed that way. But if you are a DP forward not scoring a lot of goals, it makes sense to move on after 2 seasons. So if they both leave, it'll feel... Honestly, if they both leave, it'll kind of feel like a newish team. Like a lot of departures. If they both leave, you have Reyes, Manuel, Tolkien, Van Zier leaving. I mean, those are all guys who were regularly starting. Manuel, not much toward the end, but regular guys. And so I'm a little nervous too. There's a lot of what ifs, especially this close to the season if they leave. It's not like we could plan for it a month before. Um, it's really about these guys sticking in preseason and trying to get it done in year one. Morales, if he comes. Andy Rojas as an option on the wing, if he comes. Victor Bogosh. Like, there are a lot of what ifs if these guys will hit or not, and it's a gamble. Chupo. What if he doesn't hit? What if he's like injured and on the bench? Like, no offense to Corey. What if he's another Corey Burke? Like, we just don't know any of this yet. RBNY season, another Red Bulls fan page. He's excited to see more veteran talent mixed with youth, but nervous about MLS Cup response and how our strikers will perform. I think the veteran talent mixed with the youth, perfect. We saw it in year one. It's going to compound. That's going to be the strength of this season, in my opinion. The mix. It's going to be good. It's a lot of like really old talent with really young talent. It's not like someone who's like 29, 30. It's like Emil is 32 or 3 or 4 or something. Chupo is 35. And 20-year-olds. 21-year-olds, There's not a lot in like that middle zone. But I think that will be our strength. And then, nervous about strikers performing an MLS Cup response. Look, as I said before, the Red Bulls are currently in their shortest offseason in club history, 77 days. That could be a blessing. That could be like, wow, we just finished MLS Cup. We're going to keep up our form. We're motivated. Let's do it. Or it could be Lewis Morgan's hip was basically falling off at the end of the playoffs, and he was playing through it, and he didn't have a stellar playoffs. It has to be said. He had no goals in the playoffs. And he was comeback player of the year, and his hip was supposedly fine, but apparently it's like not. Like, these guys are beat up, and they are starting 2025. They're basically starting preseason like 5 weeks after MLS Cup. That could really hurt us. That could have lasting effects. You've seen it with other teams when they have to start the season early playing in CONCACAF Champions Cup. We don't know if the Red Bulls are going to be in the Open Cup either this year. That's not official yet, or announced rather. And so this could have lingering effects. I wouldn't be surprised if we came back to this clip right here later on in the season and said, yep, the short off season really hurt the Red Bulls. Guys like Daniel Edelman playing their heart out. Whatever. Lewis Morgan, I think, is the main one I'm worried about. Forsberg, too. Coming back in a big way in the playoffs. Carvalho, obviously it's been a question mark if he's going to continue, but he was injured at the end of the season. What if that comes back? What if he doesn't have enough time to heal? These are things that I'm thinking about. The short off season is fun as a fan. Like, we get more soccer. But it's going to be a factor. I think it's going to be a factor. 77 days between MLS Cup and opening day. We'll see how it goes. I've been talking a lot. This feels like I'm like streaming or something, but it's a podcast. Taking a sip of my tea. When you're alone on the podcast, it kind of does feel like it's like a live stream or something. So anyway, that is it for the mailbag section. Thank you guys for sending in your stuff. Really cool hearing where you guys are at. I think I agree with most of it. It's like, we're really excited. 2024 was sick the way it ended. But the short off season, and we've brought in a lot of players, but something still feels missing. Something still feels off. It feels incomplete weirdly. I don't really know how to fully articulate that. It's mainly just the lack of like proven top end a talent. If we knew that Chupo was going to start every game, I'd be a bit more comfortable. But that's kind of a question mark. He hasn't played since the summer. He was let go by Bayern in the summer. Been he's been without a club for 6 months basically. So 5 months maybe. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, 34 game season. I'm excited that there's no Leagues Cup break. It's going to be midweek. I think that's going to just be more fun for fans too. To have like midweek Leagues Cup nights. I think that's fun instead of like we are halting every living, breathing thing we are doing to focus on this tournament. It's like intersperse it like the League Cup. Like the Open Cup. Like this is every tournament around the world. Champions League is all played during the week. And people love it and tune in for it. And it's not an issue that it's not on Saturday at 7:30, Midweek soccer rules, man. So I'm excited for that in the summer. If the Open Cup is a thing, I'm excited for that as well. But I am a bit worried about wear and tear on this roster with a 77-day offseason. So that is about it for me, guys, for this very rambly solo episode of the Red Bulls Experience podcast. I hope you enjoyed. Just hearing kind of where I'm at. I'm grateful to be a part of this club more than ever. I had a lot of fun too, just on the account this past year. Saw a lot of growth starting the podcast, doing a lot more design than I thought I would be doing, and showcasing one of the most memorable runs in club history in a fun way. I enjoy having this platform, getting to connect with you guys, and just making a lot of cool stuff that hopefully can enhance your own Red Bulls experience. There it is. That's why I'm called The Experience. So yeah, maybe it's a cheesy name. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe it's cheesy, but I just think we all experience the Red Bulls in different ways. I wanted to bring my experience and showcase it with you guys. And yeah, so that's about it from me, guys. I think I want to make another podcast probably right before the season starts, or maybe in between preseason camps. We'll see. We'll see where I'm at. The next few weeks are pivotal. Hopefully a few new signings come in. We're going to be going down to Florida for Camp 1, and we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for the preseason games. I'm curious to see any remaining transfers that go through, and expect a lot more movement on the roster, and sit tight. We'll have the new kit coming out next month. A lot of fun things coming up. So it's been Luca from the Red Bulls Experience. Grateful for the crazy end to 2024 that we had, and excited for 2025 altogether. So much to be excited about. Let's do this. Yeah, let's go Red Bulls, baby, now more than ever.